My name is Dr Victoria Williamson and I'm a music psychology expert. I spent the first 20 years of my life training to be an academic in universities in the UK and worldwide, working on research on how music impacts brain and body. I've published over 40 peer-reviewed articles and my own book, You Are the Music. And now I've pivoted to be the chief scientist of Audicin. And my job at Audicin is to run the research program. Audicin's research program has two parts, the first of which is building its evidence base from the scientific literature. And the second thing I do is I run our research program. I ensure that all our products are tested, user tested, so that they are performing the functions that we promise. They're working in the way that's intended to help people recharge while they're working.
What is Audicin? How does it work? What is it based on?
Audicin is a scientifically backed, evidence-based sound system that helps you to recharge while you're working. It's based on the way that audio waves impact on our bodies and brains. And what those audio waves do is help to regulate your nervous system. So too many of us these days are living in fight or flight mode. Our adrenaline is activated, our cortisol is activated. Not only is it hard to work in those conditions, but it has a terrible inflammatory and aging effect on the body and brain. What Audicin does with specially crafted music and sound waves is regulate that nervous system. It brings it out of that state of fight and flight, helps you recover from exhaustion and burnout. And once the auditory system and the nervous system are regulated and working well, you can then begin to build. You can then begin to optimize performance in daily life. So the beauty of Audicin is that it is there for this cycle of recovery and optimization. So it will keep working for as long as you use it to optimize life. Audicin is based on two main scientifically backed ingredients. The first of which is binaural beats. Now, binaural beats are an auditory illusion. They're not something that's there in the sound. It's something that your brain does in reaction to sound. We create special elements within the audio waves that help your brain to produce back. In effect, your brain is singing back to the sound with its own wave. And this wave, depending on how fast or slow it is, will slow or speed the activity in your brain. So, by that measure, it helps you to relax, focus, and even then to operate in higher speeds of creativity and imagination. The second thing that Audicin has is a special surround sound system. Now, we put those binaural beats and the specially composed musical sounds in the surround sound experience because that is how to deliver them in a way that is most optimized for brain performance. Because your brain is used to a 360-degree auditory environment. It's not used to hearing just in a binaural way, just with your two ears, a flat sound. It wants to hear the sound that's around you, in front of you and behind you. And when you create a sound that is natural, that mimics your auditory system's natural way of working, then it will have maximum impact on the brain. There is nothing like Audicin on the market today. There is no form of music that works so well. And this is because it's a unique combination of the arts and the sciences working well together. Audicin is composed by people for people. It is never going to be an AI-generated loop experience. It is the natural experience we have of hearing music composed that is intended to touch us emotionally. But it is composed in such a way that it can be mixed and mastered to include the Audicin active ingredients, to include the binaural beats, which will help change your brain state to the optimal way you want to be, and the surround sound experience, which makes it comfortable to listen to, so much so that it stays effectively in your background. You're aware that it's there. You're not necessarily aware of the positive effects that it is having, other than you will start to feel very good. So this mastery of the relationship between art and science, producing beautiful music that is optimized, is how Audicin is moving from the intuitive, positive impacts of music that we all recognize, which is why we put our headphones on sometimes when we want to work well. That is our intuitive instinct. This is the optimized music that is going to take those effects to the next level.
How are binaural beats related to Audicin system?
Binaural beats is a technology that's been known about for well over half a century now. So when you produce two frequencies, one to each ear, that differ very slightly in the frequency, the brain, in attempting to resolve this mismatch, beats at a frequency of the difference. So say 100 Hertz goes in this ear, 105 Hertz goes in this ear. In order to resolve the 5 Hertz difference, to fill it in, the brain starts beating a soft sound at 5 Hertz. So this is generated within you. Binaural beats are not in the sound themselves, they're coming from within your own brain. But what that brain entrainment does is it signals to the brain that it is in a certain state. When we are fast asleep, we produce very low frequency waves between 0 and 4 Hertz. When we're being creative, when we're highly stimulated, we're up more like 30 Hertz. So along that continuum, if the brain moves at those frequency levels, you can move anywhere in psychological state, from high frequency and from high creativity and imagination all the way down to deep sleep. And the brain moves actively between these states all the time. So this isn't an and/or situation. And that's what the Audicin product does, is it takes account of the psychological impact of moving between different frequencies. And more importantly, where you are to start with. What is your state when you start listening to Audicin, and where do you want to be? Those two bits of information dictate a journey that we can help you go on through binaural beats, through different psychological states, whether that is to rest down to sleep from being stressed, or whether it's you've got an hour to really achieve a task and it's got a creative element, so you need to be taken up to that height and then brought back down again. So you imagine those trajectory stories, they're all built in to the Audicin product, and they're all there to make sure that you reach the state you want to be in at the time you need to.
Why does Audicin have 3D surround sound?
Audicin plays to the strengths of your existing audio system. And when you go out there in the world, you're used to hearing in 360-degree surround sound. That is what your body and brain has heard ever since you were in utero, actually. So it is the natural state of being. That means it's easier for the brain to process sounds presented in this way because it mimics the natural state. And that's why it's so important that when we deliver the elements of Audicin, the composed music with the binaural beats, that it's presented in this natural way, quite simply so that it is as effective as it can be, that you react quickly to those sounds because they're in a state that your brain can recognize and compute quickly, and that it becomes integrated with your environment, that it slips where it belongs into the background, allowing you to continue to work.
What impact does Audicin have on productivity?
And my job at Audicin is to conduct the research program where we make sure that our sounds are having the impact that we want. So are we really impacting on productivity? Absolutely we are. So our customers who've been using it on a regular basis have reported around a 73% noticeable impact on their productivity. And that's people using it in their regular daily lives. But one of our test cases that we followed carefully over a long period of time, so this is longitudinal research, very high impact when you study people for a long time. We noted from their business case, they had a 400% improvement in their productivity. And this is a high stress environment. Knowledge workers under a huge amount of pressure. So a 400% improvement in productivity is a massive achievement when all they've done is introduce headphones and sound. There are many ways in which you can measure productivity, but one of the most exciting from a research point of view and a science point of view is this experience known as flow. So this was defined by a psychologist, Csikszentmihalyi, in the 1970s, and it's this ultimate in-the-zone experience where you lose all track of time and your productivity accelerates exponentially. And our users, 68% of our users report that they noticed a significant improvement in their number of episodes of flow that they experience daily. So those are the golden nuggets of productivity within your day. And there's a large number of people who report that this really important, impressive flow experience is increasing. And I would say as a psychologist that flow is not only important in terms of the numbers of productivity, this is important for the well-being impact at work. Because the more that you feel you've been engaged and you've been operating well and you've made a difference in your day, the more likely it is you'll feel good about returning the next day and doing the same.
How can Audicin impact relaxation?
Part of my remit in running the research program is to run scientific studies of the kind of level that you would expect to see in published papers. And that means lots of people and testing them when they're brand new to the experience. So we trialed Audicin in this kind of scenario, a real test. So this is online listening. We gave Audicin to 200 people who had never heard it before, and they only listened to it for 10 minutes. And despite that, we had a hugely significant relaxation effect. The vast majority of them were much more relaxed after 10 minutes of Audicin than when they started. And these are people who've never heard the sound before and have been given no prior information about what it contains. And still the relaxation effect is there.
What anti-aging qualities Audicin has?
The very latest neuroscientific research tells us that music like Audicin has multiple impacts on brain and body processes, many of which have the exciting potential to slow the speed of aging within our systems. So, firstly, let's talk about dopamine. So this is the feel-good hormone that gets released when we listen to pleasurable music. Now, what regular shots of dopamine can do is to have a protective effect on your cells. So wrapping them in a surface, essentially, that will protect them from the aging processes within the brain. The next and devastating neurotransmitter and hormone is cortisol. So cortisol is a really important thing that we have within our body system from when we were ancient peoples who had to survive lions, tigers, and so on and so forth. You needed a shot of cortisol in order to get you moving. But it is not a natural state to be in this fight or flight mode several times a day for weeks, months on end. But that is the situation we're in. That is what is leading to this pandemic of stress that is so crippling our well-being. Now, if we lower cortisol, we protect the brain from the aging processes that high stress can ignite. And when we up dopamine and we reduce cortisol, we have a really important combination factor that will work together to help protect the cells in your body. Now, looking even into the future, there are exciting processes within the brain that we're only starting to begin to understand, but we know that music can be involved in two exciting processes within the brain. One is neuroplasticity, which is when the brain migrates its functions. When parts of the brain aren't working well, you migrate them to another part. We know that music can aid this process in order that you reorganize the brain to optimize the performance. And the second one is neurogeneration. So this idea that music can stimulate new cells within the body, and it can do this at any stage of life. The body and the brain are capable of learning, growing, changing, however old you are. It is never too late to start bringing new life with music.